This is Lauren Lester, the voice of Robin and Nightwing, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app. And remember, no one can be a boy wonder forever.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 213 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my good friend, good brother, our other host, the man that runs our Twitter page. So many titles given to this man. That's right, it's Liam. Liam, we are smack dab in the middle. Well, I shouldn't say smack dab in the middle. We just kicked off last week, but we're in week 2 of our Elseworlds Boy Wonder Month, or Robin the Boy Wonder Month if you prefer, and we have another universe, maybe our most often visited universe, kicking things off this week.
Absolutely, yes, we've visited this one quite a few different times in various Elseworlds review, but we are returning this week to the world of Batman the Brave and the Bold. And of course, appropriately enough, for this month of Elseworlds Robin reviews, we have Robin's first sort of major appearance in this series, that being in the episode The Color of Revenge.
That is right. And before we get into this week's full breakdown of the plot and then our scores, let's, Liam, get our official Imdb synopsis for this week's episode, which originally aired here in the States on the Cartoon Network back on May the 22nd, 2009, meaning we're just a few weeks past the 13-year anniversary of this episode's debut. And of course, this segment is, as it always is, sponsored by The Pod Tower. Check out youtube.com/The Pod Tower for not only our entire catalog of episodes and bonus episodes. Check out those other Elseworlds months that we've done in the past. You can also get some amazing content from other DCAU creators just like us. Head on over to youtube.com/The Pod Tower and subscribe today.
Absolutely. This is the synopsis for The Color of Revenge, ! Written by Todd Casey, directed by Michael Chang, with music by the Dynamic Music Partners and animation by Digital Emation Inc. And that synopsis reads as such. Crazy Quilt is blinded by a young Robin. Years later, he comes to Bloodhaven looking for revenge.
All right. Short to the point. No spoilers at all for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I give that a solid B.
I do worry about the use of the he. You probably should have. You mentioned 2 different gentlemen in the first sentence, yes. So you may need to qualify that. Pronouns, pal. You need to worry about that. But yes, overall, I think a solid job. And as the synopsis suggests, as we've talked about quite a few times, as you mentioned, Cal, Brave and the Bold episodes, we always have a cold open, usually a little 2-minute mini adventure featuring Batman and one of his many compadres throughout this series. But this time, unlike some of those other episodes, it isn't this self-contained little adventure, and it's actually a prologue to our main episode.
I agree with the Commissioner, Batman. This clue sure looks like it points to the Gotham River.
There's always more to a clue than what meets the eye, Robin. Crazy Quilt's paintings are no exception. He's referring to waves of light, not water. Red, blue, and green are the basic colors by which the human eye perceives light. Here's where we'll find that flamboyant fiend. Quilt is after the extremely dangerous stimulated emission light amplifier.
Batman and Robin get a call from the Commissioner, and they race off to a planetarium of some sort. Or a museum. I'm not quite sure where they are, but they are fighting off Crazy Quilt and his henchmen. And Crazy Quilt has created this new weapon which fires this sort of tri-colored blasting laser. And Robin quickly notices that the panels on this space satellite that's on display reflect that laser, and so he uses that panel to reflect it right back at Crazy Quilt, and not only damages the machine, but it damages Crazy Quilt himself. And that's sort of the impetus for our episode as we get our theme song, and that's right to the action.
Yeah, that's right. As you mentioned, that part is very important to the rest of the show, because we get things kicking off. Of course, they decided not to use Nightwing in this series, huh? They instead went with an aged up Robin.
Well, spoiler alert: there might be an episode later on where that transition happens, but in this first appearance here, it's an adult Robin himself.
Wow. Okay. See, I'm learning new things about this show every single day. Well, as we flash forward to the adult Robin, he is in Bloodhaven, as I mentioned, and there is a break-in happening at the Bloodhaven Bank by one Solomon Grundy, who makes yet another appearance. We last saw him in one of our past reviews, but he is he of the man with his mouth sewn shut, at least in this iteration of him, is breaking in and attempting to rob the Bloodhaven Bank, and he is foiled, thankfully, by Robin, who seemingly is able to do much more than the cops of Bloodhaven can do, unsurprisingly, with this metahuman menace. And he's able to make somewhat quick work of the undead gangster. He's able to do so, and then quickly thereafter, we learn that Robin has a visitor as he looks up in the sky and sees this eye blinking in the sky, and as he's sort of putting the pieces together, he's cut off by none other than the Dark Knight himself, or maybe in this iteration, the Bright Knight himself, who has already figured things out and what the eye is doing, and he informs Robin that it's blinking a Morse code, and that Robin, it must be that Crazy Quilt has escaped from Arkham and he's out for revenge on Robin. And it's very quickly established here that this Robin has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite this still being, as you said, in the Robin costume, they're definitely taking elements from the more modern Dick Grayson Nightwing comics, where he sort of left the confines of Gotham City and establishes himself in his own city of Bloodhaven. And yes, he makes it very clear, both during that fight with Grundy, and then as soon as Batman sort of rides up right next to him, and they're both driving their individual motorcycles through the streets of Bloodhaven, that it really does set up this vibe throughout the whole thing, where I think anybody who maybe has not even necessarily a bad relationship, but like any sort of contentious relationship with a parent, especially, or any kind of family member, where you just, as soon as they show up, you just feel yourself getting tense. And that's what it feels like as soon as Batman shows up, even though Batman's not really saying anything derogatory or trying to rile Robin up in any way. He's just being Batman, and that alone is kind of what drives Robin a little bit crazy about the whole thing.
Strange. It looks like
Morse code. It spells out an address on the corner of Haney and Aparo.
What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in a whale's belly with Aquaman or something?
Crazy Quilt escaped.
From Arkham, I know.
Good. Then you know it's you he's after.
Yeah, I've got it under control. See you at the next Bat Family reunion.
You have no idea how deranged Quilt's become.
You always knew more than I did about criminals, right?
Look, I know you left Gotham so you could be your own man, but I'm only here to help. It'll be just like old times.
Fine, but just remember...
Follow my lead.
You're in my city now.
They arrive at this club and they have their first interaction with Crazy Quilt, who they learn is again is still blind from Robin's interaction with him that was in the little kickoff trailer part there, the intro. What do they call that? The cold open, or
the prologue, the cold open, perhaps?
Yeah, perhaps that. All right, so they quickly have realized that this entire setup here is a bit of a ruse, as Crazy Quilt's henchmen are there, and Robin, headstrong and determined to make sure that he is the one to take down Crazy Quilt, chases after what he believes is Crazy Quilt and jumps into a room, only to discover that hey, it's a trap, and it's sort of one of those carnival machines that spins around and holds you against the wall with what's that? Centrifugal force. And so as they're spinning around, they're attempting to come up with an idea. Robin has an idea to sort of blow a hole into the side of the machine. Batman is very dismissive of that idea and says that this light machine at the top of it must be connected to the same power source as the machine, so they should take out the laser, or take out the light with his bat laser.
The spinning force combined with physical pressure could be enough to puncture the wall with the Bat-Wagon.
No, we'll be crushed by then. The projector for the light pattern should be plugged into the same power source as the machine. If I can just hit it with the bat laser. More often than not, escaping a death trap is about quick thinking, not brute force.
Yeah, but my way worked too.
Quilt said he's after something bigger. We need to find out what, fast. Let's move.
Oh, man. He trashed my bike.
Not to worry, Robin.
Please, not the sidecar.
And Robin totally disregards it and jams this batarang into the side of the machine, which blows a hole into it, but simultaneously cuts the power also with Batman using his laser. And that's where we again have the butting of heads from the formerly known as dynamic duo.
Yeah, they're Batman sort of lecturing him that brute force isn't the way to go. You have to be smart and quick and think quick and all that. And Robin very astutely points out, but my thing worked too. And Batman just kind of ignores that and keeps going. And as they go out, we see this, which is just a fantastic setup for a bit, which is as they get outside and they're sort of moving on to the next clue. Robin notices that his motorcycle has in fact been trashed and destroyed by Crazy Quilt's henchmen. So Batman alerts him that not to worry, he has just the thing. And of course, since Batman is also on his motorcycle, he has the retractable sidecar. I don't know, I didn't know when to slot this in, because the whole episode feels like, even more so than anything else we've talked about of this series, this is such an Adam West, Burt Ward episode. Like,
Truly.
Other than the fact that Batman and Robin are arguing with each other, that didn't really happen. But like, it feels like we're picking up, maybe if that show went on for another 5 years and Robin became his own man, it almost feels like we're dropping back in on them, the way the traps and all the things. And then yes, as we mentioned, the Robin is so mortified to have to ride in this sidecar with Batman, and he's so frustrated. And then they're sort of discussing that, and Batman asks Robin if there've been any art thefts recently, and because that's usually how Crazy Quilt signals that he's about to commit a crime, because like many of Batman's rogues, he can't help himself but leave clues to his next crime. And of course, Robin remembers that Van Gogh's Starry Night was recently stolen from the Bloodhaven Museum, where it was on loan. It's really on whoever owns that painting. Why would you loan it to any city that has a supervillain problem? Like, that's on you at that point. That's not That's not on the city or on Batman and Robin here. That's really on you.
The fine citizens of Bloodhaven deserve to be treated to the beauty that is fine art, Liam. They should not be discriminated against simply because they have a higher chance of that piece being stolen.
Fair enough. I apologize, but yes, that sets it up where they talk about the name of the painting being Starry Night, and Robin goes, well, that must mean it's Star Labs, which Batman dismisses or doesn't say anything, and then about 5 or 10 seconds pass, and then Batman just repeats exactly what Robin just said, and they zoom off towards Star Labs. It was so good. And we'll certainly talk more about this in voice acting, but yeah, it's just the timing of that joke was so tremendous.
Quilt is a madman and more dangerous than ever, but he still can't resist leaving clues to his crimes. Have there been any art thefts in Bloodhaven since he escaped?
Van Gogh's Starry Night was on loan to the county museum and went missing yesterday. It must mean Quilt is heading to Star Labs.
I've got it. Starry Night. It must mean Quilt is heading to Star Labs.
So they drive off to Star Labs, where they once again are coming face to face with Crazy Quilt and his henchmen, and once again Robin is sort of relegated to taking care of the henchmen and worrying about the getaway driver, and meanwhile Batman sort of faces down with Crazy Quilt, who we finally see the plan, which is that he's sort of rebuilt this special laser that he was messing with in the prologue intro to the episode. And not only that, but he's going to connect it directly to his optic nerves, which will, I guess, both restore his sight and allow him to use the laser just by thinking and looking at things, which he will use to carve entire buildings into works of art, like you do.
Right, exactly. I mean, what else would you do with it? So they head off to this to Star Labs, and they of course encounter Crazy Quilt and his goons, and despite his protests and his desire to go after Crazy Quilt himself, Batman insists that Robin go after the henchmen, and Robin immediately asks why, to which Batman responds, the reason why you have to go after the henchmen is because you're good at it, and that's why you always have to go after it. Again, I howled. I clapped my knee. So funny. So through this, it appears that Robin actually does get the upper hand of the henchmen, but as he's outside, Crazy Quilt escapes in his light ray tank thing. I don't know. There's a name that they give it, but the mobile SELA, SELA. The mobile SELA. He has an unconscious Batman in his grasp at that point, so he's actually bested the Dark Knight and leaves Robin covered in rubble to escape and to try and figure out just how he's going to save Batman. He does mention, him being Crazy Quilt, mentions that he's going to turn Batman into a rug. I think he says a quilt. Yeah, a rug, not a quilt, a rug. So Robin has to figure out exactly where he's going to find Batman, or where Crazy Quilt would be able to turn Batman into a rug. So he figures out that maybe it would be at this Bloodhaven textile factory. And driving away, by the way, as he attempts to leave, Crazy Quilt trashes his bike, or we mentioned has trashed his bike before, which is why Robin had to ride in the sidecar. But now Robin gets to drive the Bat Cycle in pursuit of Batman. So he's sort of back in the saddle, so to speak, here. And so he does go to the carpet factory, and he does what he does best. He knocks out some of the henchmen, and that's when he finds Batman. Batman demands that he take him down, and before he does this, Robin decides he's got to give Batman a piece of his mind before he cuts.
Good
Batman
job,
down.
Robin. Now you have to get me out of here quickly, so listen carefully.
No, you listen. I've got some things I want to get off my chest. First off, I'm not a child anymore, so I don't need you checking up on me and always looking over my shoulder. Sure, you taught me a lot when I was a kid, but I'm an adult now, and I've got my own city to look after. I don't need help. I don't chase henchmen, I don't get the costumes dry cleaned, and I don't ride in sidecars. Admit it, Batman, I'm just as good as you. Huh?
Thanks for taking out the henchman.
Yeah, apparently that's my specialty.
That's right. It's another pretty humorous bit here as Robin is really just pouring his heart out and really letting Batman know all of the problems that he has with everything that's happened over the years and again, it's the sort of thing that happens when you have an argument with family after not having the argument for a long time, and it's just you're just ranting and raving, and meanwhile Batman frees himself from the textile machine, and they as they sort of continue to talk, and Robin sort of is reminding him that he's his own man and all of that. Crazy Quilt once again breaks in, having now successfully hooked up this laser to his brain directly. And that sort of sets up our final fight here, as in the midst of the fight, Batman and Robin are sort of once again pinned behind a pillar as Crazy Quilt continues to fire on them, and Robin asks Batman what the plan is, and Batman in a nice little sweet moment actually defers to Robin and allows him to call the shots since they're in his city. And so the plan is actually a little bit of a reversal here, as Batman sort of acts as the distraction piece and gets Crazy Quilt firing and looking at him all of the time, and that allows Robin to not only drop. He uses like an acetylene torch to drop a part of a steel girder to break the machine. And then he, as he remarks that while he may have been raised by Batman, he never forgot his true roots, and performs quite a few acrobatic maneuvers to get close to Crazy Quilt and finally knock him down and sever his connection to this machine, as he remarks that he'll always be a flying Grayson at heart. And that sets up our nice little epilogue to the episode, as Crazy Quilt is taken away. And as they continue to talk, Batman mentions to Robin that he's always had faith in him, he's always believed in him, and if he hadn't, he wouldn't have given Robin his blessing to go fight crime in his own city by himself. And so as they sort of they've sort of made up, and seems like they're back on the same page, Batman gets an alert that Killer Moth is on the loose, and asks Robin if he wants to come with for old time's sake. And Robin's so excited he almost lets out a golly, and then again, in a beautiful bit of comedy, it transitions from Robin's smiling face to him once again scowling with his arms crossed as he is back riding in the sidecar. And that's how our episode ends. Just a really funny callback to end the episode. So boy, this is just a whole hell of a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we've talked about that each and every time we've reviewed these episodes, that these are very lighthearted, with the exception of perhaps the last episode that we reviewed, which check out in the archives and at DCAUreview.com, which is Chill of the Night. Again, you can hear that in the archives, and was quite frankly an anomaly for this series, it seems like, as far as being a serious, darker episode. But these things are mostly lighthearted fun with a lot of subtle blink and you miss it humor, and not and humor that can be appreciated by children and adults alike. So I think that makes what makes this series so enjoyable. And when you put in one of these episodes, it goes by in a breeze. It's not a slog to get through. So yeah, I love from the opening bit there, from that prologue, where it's almost a straight homage to Batman 66. You had so many nods to it, from Wayne Manor and the blinking red phone and the poles, and then we'll talk about the visuals in just a second here, climbing up the side of the building and all of that. Like that, the first bit is just a shortened episode of Batman 66 essentially. And then to have that directly connect with the story, or the rest of the story, and you have some motivation and this feeling of Robin which feels very natural for the episode, of him feeling like he's being treated like a kid. Again, Batman's oblivious nature, in which he's just sort of talking down to Robin the entire time and treating him like a sidekick, is great. But then at the end, having when Batman tells Robin, "Your villain, your plan," it's just a feel good moment. It's just like, yes, like Batman is recognizing the error of his ways here, and he's going to give Robin the opportunity to stand on his own 2 feet and do what he thinks is best. And Robin clearly exceeds at it. And then to kind of revert back at the end where Robin's riding in the sidecar. It's just great comedy. So for all those reasons, I ended up giving Plot an 8 out of 10 for this week. What about you?
Yeah, I went with the exact same score, an 8 out of 10. Just a whole lot of fun, and for all the reasons you've mentioned there, not only for the homages to Adam to the 66 series, but then to take what is essentially it's a pretty, like, if you just look at it on paper, as perhaps our synopsis suggests, there's not really any subplots or anything else going on. It's just Crazy Quilt is out and he's got a big laser and this could become really heavily reliant on the action sequences to kind of give it its pacing for that reason. But the fact that they kind of added in, like we said, this sort of very relatable and fun and funny subplot of Robin just feeling this inferiority complex and feeling the stress of being around Batman after finally sort of feeling like he got out from under that shadow, to have to kind of go back in and work with Batman again, and to ultimately get that to get that validation from Batman at the end is a real fun bit there. So yeah, just a whole lot of fun.
Agreed. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which will be visuals and animation. So I didn't catch the animation studio for this week. Who's our animator?
So per the credits, it is Digital Emation is the company. Digital Emation Inc.
Gotcha.
And, Michael Chang is the director.
Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think kicking things off, you have a pretty much, as we said, the opening bit is just a beautiful homage to Batman 66 from everything, the change of the costumes. I was expecting a atomic batteries to power, turbines to speed a reference there. They did everything but that, essentially. You even got the shot of Batman and Robin buckling their seatbelts before they speed out of the cave. But I loved that. And then it doesn't stop there. As they arrive to try and take down Crazy Quilt, they do the walk up the side of the building. Maybe the most iconic thing that people think about when it comes to the 66 Batman. So I loved all of those nods. I don't know how much we've talked about it. We've probably talked about it occasionally, but Batman 66 has a unique and a special place in our hearts from watching reruns during our childhood. The original iteration of FX back in the day. Yes, the still FX now that's just drama and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and whatever else they play on that show. Old movies, I guess now. I don't know. But yeah, that when they first started out, they just had, I guess, the rights to all these old CBS and 20th Century Fox television shows that they just played on rerun. So we watched a lot of Batman 66 back in the day. So that having that clear homage and nod, and this series does its own, it's its own nod to that Silver Age of Batman, but it isn't always a straight up homage to the Adam West era. But the fact that they made it very overt with this opening prologue here, I loved that. Lots of cute little cool nods, and like I said, very much hit me right in the feels with those scenes there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have Batman in sort of the flashback, like Dick Sprang era, like 40s and 50s suit too, with the regular black bat there, which I don't know if we've talked about this on this show. I know at some point James Tucker has talked about that, when he was sort of trying to come up with the visual identity for this show, he was, he had some different ideas and, nothing was quite clicking. And then I believe he said he had a conversation with First Tim, who says, well, just do the 50s Batman look and that you did in Legends of the Dark Knight originally, which of course, James Tucker was the director on that episode. That's such a beloved episode of our main DCAU continuity, and so he sort of expanded that and still made it its own style. But here again in this episode, especially in that little intro, you have the young Robin in the short shorts and the pixie boots, and as you mentioned, the black utility belt, which is very much the Burt Ward belt, which I thought was a nice touch there, and then yes, Batman in kind of his full Dick Sprang glory there as well. I thought that was just it's a really fun opening sequence, and then we go right into the action again with, I think, that first bit with Robin sort of just establishing that he's capable in the fight with Grundy, and there's a Robin signal in Bloodhaven that we see shining when Grundy first shows up, and then some of those fun little bits of trying to make it feel like Robin really has set out on his own here. And the adult Robin costume itself is very much based on the original Earth 2 from the comics that was sort of established in the 60s and gone back to several times over those decades up until I think the original Crisis on Infinite Earths wiped a lot of that out. But rather than become Nightwing or stay forever young on that world, the character sort of aged in real time, and so Robin became an adult and fought in this sort of more adult costume with the long sleeves and the pants. We should point out that Robin gets pants in this episode, as he has these really bright yellow ones, but again, it's pretty much right out of that design from the 60s Earth 2 comics. So and I think it's fun as a point of difference to not just make him Nightwing right off the bat, as we alluded to. There are episodes later where he does adopt that persona in this series, but I think having him sort of strike out as the adult Robin first it's a good point of difference for Young Justice and obviously the new Batman adventures, and even Teen Titans did a crack at a Nightwing at one point. So it's a nice little point of difference to instead kind of use that adult Robin and see a different version of a older Dick Grayson here.
Yeah, and an often forgotten design there with that costume. So yeah, definitely a unique homage and tribute in that form and fashion. So definitely a great nod there, and one that's enjoyable if your comic book depth of knowledge goes as deep as yours does, Liam. So appreciate that as well. I will say the only thing, I love this art style. I love the sort of the thick, bold lines. I love some of the tricks that they do, like when in the final battle between Robin and Crazy Quilt, where he finally makes a connection and hits his fist to his face. You kind of get the classic comic book panel, except in animation. So it's moving a little bit, but it's sort of frozen with Robin with the uppercut and Crazy Quilt flying back, and the background is sort of painted a solid bright orangish red color, I believe. And so you have that action point. So it's very much invoking the thought of those comic book panels that you've often read. The only thing I didn't care for and was a little bit distracting is this episode, because of the amount of vehicles that are in it. I did, and maybe I sound like a broken record at this point, but they used a lot. There's a lot of CGI that is interjected here, because you have this tank that Crazy Quilt is driving, and then you have the Bat cycles, the Batmobile in the opening prologue. You have two different Bat cycles, and there are some scenes where it didn't bother me as much. I thought the first introduction of the Robin cycle, which I love the design, because it's very much it reminds me of the Robin car from the 90s Batman Robin run, that bright red color with the R on the side, or the red. They call that the Red Robin also.
The Redbird.
Okay, that's the Redbird car that Robin drove. So very, very much invoked that type of imagery, but it did get a little bit distracting, especially when you have both motorcycles on the screen at the same time, and there's lots of turning, and when those vehicles move, there's just a little bit of choppiness to them that makes them stand out a little bit, I feel. These weren't quite as blatant as the Justice League Unlimited introduction, where there wasn't any cell shading. There was a little bit of cell shading over top of it, but it's still, there were places where it felt like it stuck out a little bit. So that was a little bit distracting at times, and that probably took my score down a point or two. But what did you feel? How did you feel about the use of CGI in this week's episode?
Yeah, I had made note of that as well. I think it works better, and I know it's been used in other episodes of this series, but I feel like on Batman's Bat Cycle, it doesn't look, because it's a black vehicle with just sort of these red accents. So maybe you can hide a little bit more of the sort of off-kilter nature, or just that thing where it doesn't feel like it matches the rest of the show. Whereas with Robin's cycle, with the Crazy Quilt tank, and with we get a throwback Batmobile that's blue in the intro there. Those all really stuck out to me. It's like, they just don't feel like they belong in this world. And again, it's, obviously a lot of that stuff comes down to budget and how much time they had and all that stuff. So, I don't want to, but it was definitely noticeable. And because a lot of this episode does involve these vehicles, it is sort of constantly being brought up. Whereas if it was just used in one or two establishing shots, it maybe wouldn't have been as big an issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to see if there's anything else so the Crazy Quilt design, I will say that's a character who correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he ever actually made it to Batman 66. So I don't think that's not one of those characters that has necessarily been done a whole lot in animation. I wouldn't be shocked I haven't watched the entire series, but I wouldn't be shocked if he popped up in that Harley Quinn animated series. But he's one of those weird characters from that era that this is probably his first appearance in animation ever. So a unique enough design. I do like the fact that they kind of, once he goes blind, they changed up the way that his eyes looked, and then when his helmet gets knocked off at the end in the fight, you kind of see the grafting to his scalp that he did in order to get the device hooked directly into his brain. So I appreciated that. That attention to detail. His henchmen are just like red, green, and blue blob covered men, essentially, that have these guns that fire different color, they're whatever color they are, paintballs. So that was interesting. But yeah, and then I think the polka dot room, when they get to that Club 38, I thought that was. Is there some sort of reference to Club 38 that we should know about, by the way? There has to be some sort of weird Easter egg as to why they named that Club 38, right?
Probably. I mean, you would think 39 would be the more obvious one, right, if it was just a Batman reference. So I'm not sure if that has too much significance.
I didn't see any in the Batman Brave and the Bold Wikipedia page, any in the trivia. So I guess if there is a meaning, maybe that's something that we can ask Mr. James Tucker, a Twitter friend of the show, if he has any recollection on that one. But yeah. So for all those reasons, I do love the animation. I love the look of things. I love the nod to the Earth 2 Robin and not doing Nightwing, as you mentioned, and that whole opening homage to Batman 66. But the CGI, like I said, brought my score down just a tad bit there. So I ended up giving things a 7 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, I went just a tick higher. I went 8 out of 10. I think, like I said, I think there's still a lot of fun to be had. I do agree that I feel like Quilt's or I did think that Quilt's henchmen could have been a little more, like, they're fun, like it's just these three guys painted head to toe in whatever color, but like their weapons are just kind of like regular miniguns, but they shoot paintballs. Like, that's kind of a fun gimmick. But I guess I was expecting, again, because this was such an over the top, I do like as you said, the inclusion of a death trap sort of right in the middle of the episode. That would be our, the end of part 1 of the 2-part Adam West adventure. So them being stuck in the room, spinning faster and faster. They're going to be turned two-dimensional by the centrifugal force of the room spinning is really wacky. And that sequence of Robin sort of, digging the Batarang into the wall, trying to make his exit while Batman sort of struggles to activate his little the laser, the bat laser, as he calls it, even though it appears to just be a laser, but you put bat on anything, and if Batman uses it, it's a bat whatever. So I thought that's a fun sequence. And then that ending bit there is as they sort of, we see a couple of them sort of in a far kind of zoomed out shot as Crazy Quilt is sort of doing his villain laugh before Robin arrives, and then Robin sort of breaks into the factory, and right before he sees Batman, he sort of looks at all the paintings, and we see a few more of them. So I thought that was, again, it looks like the as you mentioned, the background designers and everything had a lot of fun with this episode for sure. So yeah, a lot of good, even with some caveats to our visual scores. Still pretty strong scores from both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. I gotta assume music's done by Dynamic Music Partners. So
it sure is.
So what I'm gonna be completely transparent here with you. I didn't have a single note for music other than the the intro. I know there's music that's playing in the background during that final scene, and there's some mood setting music between Batman and Robin as they take on Crazy Quilt and his villains, but nothing that necessarily stood out for me. What about you?
I had a few notes actually. One thing I would say in that intro, as I think we sort of touched on this, was that the original 66 show was not owned by DC or by Warner Brothers. It was, or at least it wasn't for a long time. There were a lot of distribution issues with it, which is why it took so long to get it on, a proper home video release. It wasn't until like the mid 2010s when they finally got that out. But so we can't use the actual Batman 66 theme, but there's sort of a knockoff version of that, I thought, playing during that sequence, as you mentioned, is they open up the Shakespeare statue and hit the switch and slide down the poles and see the engines firing on the Batmobile, and they come out of the tunnel, and the little traffic sign drops down as the Batmobile rolls over it and then pops back up. So I thought there was some nice little homage music in there.
We'll be right there, Commissioner.
Thought when the first bit, when Robin first shows up in the main episode, is they light the signal and they say we need backup here, and you get this really like funky, like real bass heavy intro music. And I didn't really hear it come back, so I don't know if it was intended to really be Robin's theme or not, but I thought he did get this really sort of almost I don't know, almost sounds like a like a little bit of a rocked up, like a rocked up version of like a Johnny Cash song or something. There's like a real like it's this old gunslinger coming out of nowhere, and he's flies into action. I thought that was kind of a fun wacky way to introduce Robin to the episode. And then my other note was, again, very much in line with the Adam West, is that quite a few times throughout the episode, and I don't think this is limited to this episode, but I think it was probably used a few extra times in this episode, is that when someone, either Batman or Robin, connects with a punch, we get that horn. We get the dramatic the biff pow bam sound effects that would often play during those fight scenes, and there would always be kind of a horn when either Batman or Robin made contact with one of the people they were fighting, and they definitely, I thought, used that quite a few times in this episode as well. Probably my favorite one is when Robin rushes off the first time when they're at the club, and he thinks he's going to grab hold of Crazy Quilt, and Batman's trying to warn him that it must be a trap, and I think the green henchman sort of tries to sneak up on Batman, and we get the classic Batman no look punch, and it comes in really dramatically there with the horn, the trumpet there to sound as he lands the blow on this guy and knocks him out without even looking at it. So again, I thought a lot of homages to the music and the themes of the Adam West Burt Ward show, not just visually and from our story perspective, but I thought definitely in the music as well. And so I ended up settling on a pretty strong 7 out of 10 for my music score this week.
Nice. I just want to tick lower. I went a 6 out of 10 for that. Again, I didn't have a specific note other than, hey, the music during the fights added, it sounded great as background music. So there wasn't necessarily something that I picked up on, but those are some great notes to go back on if I decide that there's a mandatory rewatchability, as we'll discuss in a little bit here. I'll check that out on the rewatch. All right, Liam, let's wrap things up with our final category for this week, and that is going to be our voice acting. Not a huge cast. We do have, of course, we've covered this series before, so we've talked a little bit about our Batman. It would be nice to revisit our voice actor for that. But then, of course, as you mentioned, we have a couple of new characters that are debuting here. So let's talk about this week's voice cast.
Absolutely here. So first of all, we have Jeremy Shotta playing the young Robin, who I don't know if he would normally warrant a mention, although I did think it was interesting that they did a separate voice actor, but he has done a lot of voice acting roles, especially maybe most famously as the main character of Finn on the very popular Adventure Time animated series. So thought it was worth mentioning him. And again, as you mentioned, very much in every aspect of that opening, especially as Batman is sort of monologuing to Robin about Crazy Quilt and the way his twisted criminal mind works, and Robin's just so in awe of everything Batman's saying, and they're just trading cliches back and forth as they enter into the fight and everything. It's very much like a lot of the series is a great homage, not only to the Adam West show, but also to the comics of the 50s and 60s as well. So fun little small role for Mr. Shotta. And then really, other than our two main heroes, the only other character really of note to speak of would be one Jeffrey Tambor as Crazy Quilt. And let's just preface this. In real life, in more recent years, a lot of really horrible things that this man has been accused of. And if we praise his performance, we are not praising him as a person. We're just going to talk about what his performance is in this episode. All right, just want to.
Yes, we're separating the human being Jeffrey Tambor and his personal actions and what he has been accused of and allegedly done from the actor Jeffrey Tambor's performance as Crazy Quilt and any other things that he may have acted in that we may.
That's right. So yeah, with that bit of context added, he is hamming it up like crazy, as you would want for a villain named Crazy Quilt, who is basically an evil artist, an evil painter. Like, that's his whole gimmick, is that he's this crazed artist, and specifically in this case, one that has a personal vendetta against Robin for blinding him with his tricolored laser. He's a big old ham, and it feels like he's maybe channeling a Frank Gorshin or even like the actor's name slips my head, but the man who played King Tut,
Victor Bruno.
Thank you. He's just so over the top, and over enunciating and has the dramatic villain laugh, and this performance really good for what this episode is going for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking as I was watching this, I was like, why hasn't Jeffrey Tambor done more voice acting? And some of it may be related directly to, if you just do a Google search and look at his Wikipedia page, at things and his alleged reputation that some people have with working with him, or why they may want to avoid him. But he has a voice that is like tailor-made for a children's cartoon. He, as you mentioned, he overacts, he over enunciates, he's very much over the top. He's able to add some funny variations to the way that he says or does things. I did see that he had done some stuff in the comedy series Archer, and he had credits for the Disney movie Tangled. Also, I'm not sure what, I have not seen Tangled, so I don't know what or how much his role in Tangled was. But it's shocking how few voice acting roles that he has, especially because it's not as if he was acting in, while he was a respected actor. I feel like he was more known as a, almost not a character actor, but more like he's just that guy that everybody knows. Like he's the guy from the Larry Sanders Show. He's the guy from Arrested Development. So I didn't feel like his status until maybe later on in his career was elevated to that point where he could only take those acting roles. But yeah, he does a great job. It's unfortunate, as we mentioned, the performance, praising the performance and not the performer for who they are is a tightrope to walk. So we'll just say that from my perspective, a great performance from this very complicated and oftentimes controversial actor who has a lot of things on his resume that you point to and say, yep, those are great performances, and this adds to one of those. It's just an unfortunate that it's a person that doesn't have a great reputation and has been accused of some terrible things.
Brilliant as always, Batman. Unlike Matisse, however, I was blinded by a prepubescent brat.
Quilt, you're a lousy artist and a lousier villain. If you've got the guts to show yourself, I'll gladly take you on alone.
Then come and get me, little birdie.
Wait, Robin, it's a trick.
I can handle whatever this Z-lister's got.
Again, praising the performance, not the actor.
Yeah. This will be my last little piece on this. I'll just say, I know there is a desire to sometimes want to divorce or to act as if talent is a sign of being a good person, or that the entertainment industry is a meritocracy. But like a lot of areas of life, it's not. And sometimes people that are incredibly talented, especially as comedic performers, sometimes they turn out to not be good people in real life, and that doesn't mean you're a bad person or wrong for pointing out that, or at least I don't believe that you're a wrong person to point out that, hey, this performance is still really good. But it is a weird tightrope to walk, because you don't want to, glorify a person that has maybe done some bad things in his personal life, which it's certainly, again, based on the amount of accusations against him, it would seem that he is. So a complicated way of talking about Mr. Tambor here. But I'll pivot here by just saying, once again, for the millionth time, Andrea Romano also, of course, was in charge of the voice directing and casting in this series. So especially at the time, a great bit of casting from Miss Romano here to have this actor come in and give this super over the top villain performance for a really silly and over the top villain. Like it's picture perfect for what they were going for. And from there, that'll move us on to our heroes of the piece. We of course have we'll get to our Batman in just a moment. We do have, as playing the adult Robin, we have Crawford Wilson, who is this was not a name I recognize. He has done a lot of voice acting work over the years. Certainly a lot of other cartoons and video games, and and things like that, but not one of the big names of that. You see his name credited in a lot of like additional voices, or as he's done like a lot. Seems like he's done a lot of the like English versions of some different animes. He's done voice in the Kingdom Hearts series and things like that as well. So he's certainly an accomplished guy, but maybe not the person you'd expect, especially when you're looking around at some of the other actors in this series who are working in live action film and TV. But yeah, just a veteran voice actor here, and again playing an adult Silver Age / tail end of the Golden Age Robin, who is still has that sort of youthful energy about him, but is also an adult, and is he feels himself being pulled and sort of almost forced back into this role that he served as a kid, where he's sort of in deference and being sort of made to play second banana to Batman. I think he does a really good job with it.
Yeah, that back and forth that he has with Batman, and the frustration that he continually has to show with Batman sort of disrespecting him and not treating him as an adult. And like I said, that the line that he delivers with the Star Labs, the Starry Night Star Labs thing, and then there's this pregnant pause, and then Batman just repeats exactly what he just says, and then they just cut back to Robin being extremely frustrated over it. Just such a great moment. I howled that. And then the next scene, as I mentioned, where he's complaining about why he always has to take out the henchmen, and Batman says it's because it's what he's best at, or because that's what he's the best at. He's an expert at that. I love that. So yeah, I love that. I love a lot of that. Also, it's just Batman's condescending tone, oblivious condescending tone throughout. And then Robin just finally snapping at the end and saying, he's going to give Batman a piece of his mind, only for him to turn around and Batman have escaped, so that he can't really deliver that. What he's been feeling is pretty great. I love it. Yeah, a good solid performance. And with other appearances of the Boy Wonder in this series, you have to wonder what performances lie ahead for this voice actor, and whether or not he'll continue to turn in good ones. So maybe down the line we'll review another episode or two featuring the same voice actor.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely a real solid job done by Mr. Wilson. And then of course our main event here, Diedrich Bader himself. We've talked about him quite a few times because we've covered this show quite a few times, but again, picture perfect for this show. And it's funny because often I think in previous episodes, again with the exception of maybe of Chill of the Night, which we covered probably most recently in this series, he's very often the straight man. All of this wacky wild stuff is happening around him with aliens and supervillains, and he's just sort of playing it straight and being stone cold serious. But they kind of, and again, often like in the Adam West show, that is actually the comedy. Even though he's not really playing the straight man, he is sort of the comedic foil of Robin in this episode, but it's still within that realm of him. There's no winking at it. There's no, oh, I was just trying to rile you up. No, he's just being Batman the whole time. And as you said, some of those interactions they have, as in right from the first part of the episode where it's Batman and the young Robin, and they're just trading different cliches about crime doesn't pay and all this stuff, and then once you have the adult Robin who's now sort of reacting negatively to all of this, and then you just have Batman sort of very matter of fact going like, I thought you'd like the sidecar. like just little things of him being so oblivious because he's just so single-minded in his crusade for justice. And sort of playing that for comedy while still playing it completely straight it's a weird line to walk, but a few Batman actors across history have been able to pull it off, and Mr. Bader is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we touched on it briefly, but that final conversation that he has with Mr. Wilson's Robin at the end, where they're discussing the how he's always trusted Robin, and that he has faith in him. It's sort of just like the proud dad giving the son like I do believe in you. I've always believed in you, even though he's been this overbearing figure throughout the entire episode. So it's like you said, it's balanced perfectly. Every line that he delivers is delivered without a hint of sarcasm or irony. And again, the whole thing that makes this performance amazing is that I feel like Mr. Bader just bought heart and soul into this character, being like the most serious Batman on Earth in a world where everything around him is just absolutely goofy and silly, but he holds to that, like, no, everything is serious. I'm still a serious Batman. This is still a serious television show. So I love that there's a lighthearted nature around everything. It's very much the same vein of the Adam West Batman, which gave that show such a great spirit. And then this having its own twist on it, Mr. Bader just, every time I've heard a performance, it's been awe-inspiring. So he's a really good Batman also, as we've come to learn here as we've reviewed these episodes. So unsurprisingly, I ended up giving voice acting for this week, again, very strong, a 8 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, I went with the exact same score once again of 8 out of 10. Just for all the reasons we've talked about. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not a big cast, so our two main leads there in Mr. Wilson and Mr. Bader really have to carry it, and they unsurprisingly, perhaps especially for Mr. Bader, who we've heard quite a few times, they rise to the occasion here, and it's quite a bit of fun to experience it and to see sort of another slice of an as comedic as it is, to see that sort of examination of this sort of strange father-son relationship that the Batman and especially the Dick Grayson version of Robin seem to develop over the years. So it's a lot of fun, and again, it rings true to, I think, almost any interpretation, but especially to these this homaging era of the late Golden Age to kind of early and mid Silver Age.
Agreed. All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap things up here. So why don't we get our totals? And totaling everything up, I end up with a very solid 29 out of 40. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm just a couple points higher there. I have a 31 out of 40 for my final score.
All right. Well, it's hard, as we always talk about we did it last week though, so we do it every week. So let's talk about rewatchability for this. Batman Brave and the Bold, not a lot of continuity necessarily between the episodes from what I've gathered thus far. Not a lot of continual plot threads, at least in these early seasons. However, as we mentioned, Robin does appear again. There's at least a couple times where he appears again, or the Dick Grayson character does at least. So that seems like getting the background on how this adult Robin character came to be, the story of his past, and how he came to be, if you will, is kind of pivotal. So I would say maybe this is a 1 thumb up for rewatchability. It's fun. I think we've said it every time we've reviewed these episodes are fun and a breeze to get through, and so I don't think there's anything holding it back from that. But overall, because there's not a whole lot of continuity stuff that happens, maybe it's not quite 2 thumbs up for me. So I'll give it the old the 1 thumb up. What about you?
Yeah, I can agree with that. There's definitely like I said, there's not a ton. There are a couple of longer sort of overarching stories later in this series, but early on here, not a ton. There's a line in this episode where Batman's sort of justifying Robin's treatment over the years, and he mentions that Speedy had to sharpen arrows and Aqualad had to scrub barnacles.
That was
and there is an episode a little bit later on where those 3 characters team up. So you could say that, yeah, there's definitely a little bit of cohesive tissue between this one and the next couple of times that Robin / Dick Grayson pop up in this series. But yeah, so I would give it 1 thumb up for that. As far as just a standalone episode, is it the most important episode of this series? I wouldn't say so, but it is, it's the debut of a pretty important part of the Batman mythos to this series, and then the character does return later on. So yeah, I think this is a solid thumbs up for sure for rewatchability.
There we go. All right, Liam. Well, that will bring us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, if you would like to support us, you have a few different ways of doing so. Of course, as we mentioned at the top of the program, you can subscribe to us on the Pod Tower on YouTube, youtube.com/the Pod Tower. Get our full entire catalog, including our bonus episodes and all of those episodes that we've done in the past, reviewing Batman Brave and the Bold, starting with the first one, which I think was the Attack of the Secret Santas. I think that was the first one.
Invasion.
I always say attack. It's invasion. Invasion of Secret Santas. Yeah, that way back when. That was the first Christmas episode, I believe, that we did. So check that one out in the archives, along with a few others. You can check that out at youtube.com/the Pod Tower. Subscribing to that channel helps us out, and it also helps out our friends at Tim Talk and the Watchtower Database, who put out a lot of great content on that channel as well. Don't forget, also subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. If you listen to us on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review with a little paragraph telling people what you like. That helps us. It helps the algorithm. If you listen to us on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star review on there. You can also interact with the Spotify exclusive polls and questions that we have for each episode every week. So check that out. There's also a link at the bottom of our Anchor site, and as well as at the bottom of all the distributed links there. You can click on that if you want to donate to us directly, or head over to DCAUreview.com, click on the store, and you can get yourself a piece of merch if you want to support us that way. Liam, of course, people can also support us by following us on social media at DCAU Review, both on Twitter and Instagram. Having a lot of fun talking about all things DC over on our Twitter page, and posting lots of fun stuff on Instagram as well. So join the conversation. Liam, part of the conversation includes talking about what episode we will be reviewing next week. So why don't we give a little sneak peek of what that will be?
That is right, Cal. We will be reviewing another alternate animated Robin. We will be returning to the world of the Batman, not that one, the 2004 animated series. We actually covered an episode not too long ago, coincidentally, right when that movie was coming out. But this one will, of course, focus on that series introduction for the Boy Wonder. And it's going to be interesting, I think, especially because like Robin's Reckoning before it, it is directly tackling Dick Grayson's origins. So it'll be interesting to see how that rises up, as we will be covering the first episode of the 4th season of The Batman, that being A Matter of Family.
Well, there we go. I remember that, being very excited about the Boy Wonder being introduced to that series, because I think prior to that we had only had Batgirl introduced as Batman's sidekick. So very interesting there. Also, our first Robin origin story of our Robin month. So excited to cover new ground with you there. It's going to be a great week, and we have some great stuff coming up for our final week of the month as well. Cannot wait, Liam. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU.
Bye-bye.